Here it is there. Okay, so we are, whoops, I really don't want to go right there right now. Well, actually, now everybody's going. Okay, so, yeah, sure we are in the process of, yep, we are recording. All right, welcome everyone. I just want to, maybe about a half hour or so, just go through so you know what is up with this course. And this will be posted, obviously, for those of you who did not make this. Again, I have my little Delbert up there. Delbert does dive into creativity. And as you can see, I like to think of myself as a creative person. And if you notice in the syllabus, your very first activity, which is due Wednesday, is to do a one-pager. As I said, that you just basically answer that question, are you creative? And what is creativity? And do you see yourself as being a creative person? So what you'll do with that is, as I said, 2 or 3 sentences to answer that question. I would like to get those by Wednesday night. And the reason is that's going to serve as your baseline for your thinking about creativity as we go forward. So what this course is about is you're going to spend 10 weeks within your teams. And if you notice, I did take your teams, the 4 teams that you had from 845, and condensed them into 3 teams. So hopefully you downloaded your teams so you know what teams you are. I think I broke up team 3 and dispersed you into the other 3 teams. So this is what we're going to be doing for this quarter. And what you're going to look at, basically, is this question. And the question focuses on the fact that, really, is the present structure of the schools in which you work in, and it doesn't matter if it's K-12, it doesn't matter if it's higher education, or if you work in a company or a nonprofit, how does learning take place in that? So the major question, though, really is, are we structured to prepare our kids, to really get the changes that are going to be hitting their lives as they continue to grow? So that's the major focus of this course. And what we have then for you is the 4 books. And I just want you to take a look at these books so you understand why I have them. And the first one is the Puccio book. And that is probably what I'll say is your academic book in relationship to understanding what creative leadership is about and what leaders need to do in order to work with creativity towards solving issues within any type of organization. And what is particularly good about this book is that it breaks out different skills that you're going to need as a leader to be a divergent thinker, and also those types of skills that are related to convergent thinking. So we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about and interacting with those 2 concepts. But generally, I'm going to tell you right now, I have this course designed to sort of force you into a divergent mode of thinking as opposed to convergent, which most of the organizations, if not all of them, are the types that in which you work in. And you'll see why I'm saying that. The second book, and this is the one that you're going to dive into right now, is the Tom Kelly book. Tom Kelly is one of the co-founders of IDEO, which we use quite a bit during this 10 weeks. And in this book, based upon all of his work with his brother, David Kelly, in working with organizations around the world in creating designs for any type of product, of which now they're also moving into designing social systems, that they have, or he really has come up with what he calls the 10 phases of innovation. And what you're going to be doing there over the first 4 weeks is kind of teasing out how you perceive yourself in relationship to the 10 that he has available. So that's what that particular book is about. Then the other book is Tim Brown, who is president of IDEO. And here, what you're going to really begin to look at is this concept of how divergent and convergent thinking interacts. And so again, just to make sure you understand, divergent thinking is, look at it as being nonlinear, whereas convergent thinking is highly linear. And you'll see how that plays out in the Puccio book, The Creative Leadership. But Brown basically says it is extremely important that you give equal honor to both ways of thinking if you're going to be able to create the types of environments that we would like to see emerge in the future, and particularly as you go up the U towards prototyping, that understanding of the divergent form of thinking becomes very critical once you're able to let go to let come. So this book will help you greatly in understanding the principles behind design thinking. And then finally, what I found very interesting is Dan Pink's book called Drive. And what's important about Drive is that he really begins to look at a lot of the downloading, and I'm going to use that word since you're used to it, that we have about the concept of extrinsic rewards and motivation. And that in order to really begin to understand the creative process, you're diving into what motivates people, and particularly that distinction between intrinsic and extrinsic.
You know where to go in and get her?
Extrinsic. Can you mute your side there, please? Because I thought you wanted me to go get her, but I can't right now. So anyway, what becomes very important for us to think about is how we organize our organizations around carrots and sticks. So these 4 books are going to really help you to greatly think about concepts related to leadership and this idea of creativity. So did anyone have trouble getting these books? Generally, they should have been in the bookstore or obviously on Amazon. So these are your books that you will be diving into this quarter.
Yeah, I got them. I had no problem.
Pardon me?
I got them. I had no problem.
Okay, good. Okay, so now.
Can I ask a quick question? Where did you put our groups? Because I looked through week 1 and announcements and I didn't see it.
They should be up in the course material.
Okay.
Yeah, because I posted them last week so you can see them. We're going to look at the website in a couple minutes. So
okay.
We'll be able to find it, but the teams are there.
Okay.
Now, I did adjust the syllabus already, so I'm being divergent. There I had, if you see what I have there in boldface, is that you were going to do a paper around materials that you'll see on the website or in Blackboard in a couple minutes. That I was going to have you do a short research paper on the literature related to creativity. But then again, I was thinking about what you're going to have to do in your 803 course for developing your chapters 1 and 2 for your prototype or your practice 1, 2, and 3 for a dissertation, that I decided that what I really want you to do over the next 9 to 10 weeks, I want you to keep a weekly journal on what you're experiencing through this design process, both from the videos that you're going to be watching. You'll notice, obviously, when you went into Blackboard, I have several videos over the next 2 weeks for you to watch. There's a lot of research articles up there I want you to look at. And obviously, your team interaction is very important. So instead of doing a paper, I want you to keep a journal of this. And then at the end, you're going to give me a synopsis, basically, of what you wrote about in that journal. So that's the major change from the syllabus at this point. So your learning activities, obviously, are the vision of yourself as a creative leader. So I want that to me by Wednesday night so I can just take a look at those. And again, they will serve as your baseline for your entry into what creativity is. And I want to see how that changes over time by the end of 10 weeks. And that does tie into your journal. The second one is that self-analysis in light of the innovative personas. As you look at that Kelly book, you should have a pretty good idea what I'm asking you to do there. And I will give you a little bit more information on that within the week. Then that journal, and then finally is the design thinking project. And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. And that's the bulk of your work. You are going to create a new design for what schooling in the future is going to look like. So that's the assignments that you have for this course. And, as you look in the syllabus, et cetera, except now you don't have to do the research paper. As we go along, as you have questions about that, just let me know, what it is, and, I'll try to clarify for you as much as possible. So what we have is, and I want to make sure you understand the structure of this course. Obviously, you should know what this is. It's the iceberg, and this comes out of 800. Again, this is important for your design process because you're going to spend time looking at the structure of these new environments that you're going to be looking and trying to create, and you're going to tease out what the mental models are that underlie this emerging view and the prototype that you're going to create for the future. So this is drawing upon your 800 course. Then what happens is, we'll add then on top of that then is Theory U. So what you've been through is your ability now to go down the U in order to let go of your preconceived ideas about what schools look like, whether they be K-12 or universities or learning within any type of organization. And then we're going to spend time going up the U. So this course basically is about how you go up the U, letting come in order to see possibilities of new futures. And then laid on top of that, those two courses is basically this idea of design thinking. And so what design thinking will deal with is your empathy towards the challenge that you're going to create. You'll define what that is. You're going to test it out. You're going to prototype it, and you're going to ideate many, many iterations of what this might look like from the feedback that you're going to get from me and from other people, both your colleagues and the other teams. Plus, I have some architects coming into this course that will give you feedback on that also. So this is conceptually, so I wanted you to visualize now where you are in the sequence from 800, 845 to now 801. The other question I want to ask you, have you guys had 802? Anybody can answer that, obviously. Have you had ED?
No.
No, okay, that's the technology course. Okay, so you have not had that yet. All right, that's okay. I just wanted to, to know that. So there's the structure to give you an idea, and that basically is the conceptual framework from which you're working under. Now, why I'm using the word conceptual framework is in 803, you're going to learn about creating a conceptual framework or a theoretical framework in your first chapter of your chapter 1 that you're going to be writing in 803. So I just wanted to kind of link that together by saying, all right, here's a picture of a conceptual framework of what our course looks like. And when you do 803, generally and I don't know if he's going to have you do this, but you do make a visualization of what your conceptual framework for your dissertation is about. So this is just a little tie into what you're going to be doing in 803. So with that then, basically here's the purpose. And again, you see that wave through divergent, convergent. So this journey then is to deal with a kind of a deeper dive into divergent thinking, not so much with convergent, because most of you are highly familiar with that, but the integration of those two and its impact on really what it is to be a leader. How then do you begin to utilize and encourage off the wall thinking, let me put it that way, or nonlinear thinking within your organizations in order to deal with the types of changes that we are really beginning to face, both from a technological point of view, but also from social points of view, scientific points of view, etc. So this is what this journey is going to be about. And then what you're going to explore is really to begin to tease out the deeper assumptions that you have about creativity and how it relates to leadership. That's why I'm moving you into keeping a journal, because I want you to write every week about your assumptions, about your thinkings, about what you're seeing in those videos, what you're understanding as you interact with your colleagues. Because to me, the more you understand the creative process and the innovative process, the stronger leader you will become within whatever organization you're working in. And then obviously to develop the skill sets through this thing called the design studio in order to explore the development of what 21st century schools and beyond need to become. So that's the purpose. That's what this is all about in terms of this course. And so what is happening, and when you looked at the syllabus, really what's going on here is that you're going to spend 10 weeks really going down the U to let go of all your assumptions about the process of what a school needs to look like in order to allow new possibilities to emerge. And I'll share examples with you guys from other cohorts. I'll show you videos of things that they produce, etc. Plus also, I am working with a blended cohort, and they're going to be building stuff with their hands. So I will share that information with you with the things that they develop, even though you're going to be building things in virtual world as opposed to building stuff with your hands. And I'll guide you through that, how that's going to happen. But the outcome of this is that you're going to design physical spaces. You're going to say what they're going to look like. You're going to rethink the flow of information within your system that you're creating. And what I'm calling the flow of information is in the normalcy of what a school is. How does a curriculum redesign itself? How does it change because of the interplay of your physical space and technology, particularly in changing the way in which we organize content within our schools, particularly in the future? And then finally, you're going to define what's the emergent system of work that's going to take place, both for kids, both for adults within that system, and the relationship of the school to the community. So how does the community work with the system that you're going to create? And then you're going to define what the leadership skills are going to be necessary, to make this environment sustainable. And then finally, you're going to project the types of strategies that would lead to make this a sustainable or real project within your community or within the world in general. And some of your stuff's going to be posted up to the Presencing Institute website. I have stuff up there that other cohorts have developed over the course of 6 or 7 years of this particular course, and obviously I'll share all that with you. So, anything about 1, 2, and 3? Any questions about that right now?
This is Sherry. The only question I have is, so we're really listing the leadership skills necessary to make this environment sustainable in the ideal space, because the reason I say that is we can be enlightened and understand how these things overlap and release our mental models, etc.
Right.
But the leadership skills that we may be using may not necessarily be appreciated by others who are not enlightened. So we may have to adjust what might be the necessary skills until everybody else catches up.
Well, but that's your challenge, because that's what number 3 is all about. So,
Right.
So
that would be the roadmap.
yeah. So how would you move an organization towards that? Now, you're going to get a lot of help in that, because next week I'll talk about that shindig in a couple minutes to you, because you're going to interact with the director, the international director at Perkins Eastman, a major architectural firm in DC, Sean O'Donnell, and he's going to show you some schools that they've developed in DC, Dunbar, Stoddard Elementary, and the School Without Walls, so that you get a sense of what this begins to look like. And we are going to talk about those implementation of leadership strategies that become a problem to one extent, because if the leadership doesn't understand the physical space and how that open space changes everything, then that becomes a problem. Now, also, since you brought that up, we're also going to see with some of our students who are ahead of you now, or some of you down the road who would like to do your dissertation in these buildings, exploring how the physical space influences performance of both teachers and kids within these spaces. So we got some kind of crazy things that we're going to offer to you to actually address that question that you just asked me. So I hope that helps.
Yes, it does.
So your design teams, so this is what's going to happen.
I found it, by the way.
You found what? Oh, the teams?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I think, did I put up in there that section, or for you guys this week, that design studio handbook? Hopefully you all downloaded that. Because,
it's there.
Yeah, good, because that's going to help you a lot. At least I hope it helps you a lot. So, so here's what you're doing. So how does your team structure new learning environments that allow all learners to be able to live sustainably? Draw upon the stuff that you learned in 800 from the Senge book, from Russell Acoff's book, and okay, so let's build something, to see if it works. So, whoops, excuse me, let me just drop back there for 1 second. I just moved that a little quicker than I thought. So the last then, so that purpose then is in your team, is that you're going to experience the process of design thinking in a way that's kind of interesting, because again, we're doing it virtually, whereas your colleagues in the blended will do a little bit more hands-on type of activity. But again, what you really want to be able to play around with is deepening your understanding about creativity and innovation as it intersects with leadership, and how does that lead others to move into this 21st century and beyond. And I always use the word beyond right now, because a lot of kids, particularly those of you who are in elementary buildings or know that or have young children now, your kids most likely will be alive in the 22nd century. So I just want you to think about that. So you're not just preparing kids now for the 21st century, you're also preparing for the 22nd century. So I didn't want to put too much pressure on you, but it's something to think about. So let me just show you, and you'll see this in your design handbook that I have for you. And here's what's going to happen over the first 3 weeks. And I tried to link everything together to what you've been doing in your other courses. So what you're going to do the first 3 weeks is nothing but observe, look at stuff, interact with each other, and again, be aware of voice of judgment, voice of cynicism, voice of fear. You're going to be looking at the event level. You're going to be looking at patterns of behavior. You're going to be looking at mental models. So what you're going to play around with, and I'll show you where you get all this information from. You're going to do a lot of environmental scanning for the first week in your teams. So I got a lot of Wall Street Journal articles in there of experts within the fields predicting things about the future. I got Jeffrey Sachs's material dealing with the world in general around what's going on with humankind. You're going to look at online news, what's happening in the world today, what's taking place, in order to get a scan of what does the present environment of our world look like and what's some of the future thinking that is taking place. So videos I've given you, materials you're going to look at, your team's going to play with that stuff over the next 3 weeks, and then you're going to define next week a challenge that your team wants to explore in order to deal, with these ideas. And once you put that challenge together, and I'll share with you different challenges that other groups have looked at. And I think in that design handbook I've given you some statements of challenges that past cohorts have done. But the other thing I want your team to do once you identify your challenge is I want you to talk to people in your environment about your ideas. I want you to get information. And what that's about is, how do I develop an empathy for the challenge I'm going after? So you might want to talk to, if you're a classroom teacher, or if you're a building principal, or, you're in a college and, you got a lot of college students near you, I want you to talk to them about what they perceive future as being based on this challenge that your team comes up with. So that's what you're going to be doing for the first 3 weeks. And again, just going to give this to you, let it percolate in your mind. And then if you think of questions, as usual, just email me, text me, or whatever, and, I'll help you, to tease through that. Then what will happen is now in week 4, you're going to start now looking at all this data that you've collected, what you're learning from the field, what you're listening to people, and you're now going to start moving into brainstorming. You're going to go through that. You're going to now begin to play around with, okay, what's out of the box? What is so divergent that we can begin to really think about what our schools or what schools in the future might look like? Now, in the meantime, next week, you will have already interacted with Sean McDonald or O'Donnell from the architectural firm, where he'll be showing you buildings that were designed towards the future. Buildings that are highly sustainable. So for example, the Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C. is the world's #1 lead high school in the entire world. It has major solar array in it, has geothermal in it, it recycles the water, etc. So you're going to get ideas about what a physical space might look like going in the future, build upon sustainability. So go back to what Peter Senge in The Necessary Revolution was talking about around both economic and ecological sustainability. So you're going to now, in your teams in the 4th week, really begin to allow your divergent, outside-the-box thinking to emerge on what this might look like. So again, you're going to look at events, you're going to look at patterns of behavior, mental models, and you're going to kind of tease out what the vision of what a school might look like. Okay, so that's in week 4, what you'll be playing around with. Then, as you come into week 5 and 6, now you're going to create prototypes. You're going to start building these things out, and then in week 6, your team will do I believe I think I said 15-minute presentation of what your prototype looks like, and then you're going to get feedback from the other teams and myself. Possibly a couple architects might come into your meeting and give you feedback on that. So that's what you're going to be doing in week 5 and 6. You're going to be building your model of what it is in a virtual world. Then what will happen is in the week 7 and 8, you're going to keep working on this. You're going to keep, pulling stuff back. You're really going to look at that physical space. You're going to look at how information flows, what the system work is, your leadership skills. So over those 2 weeks, you're going to start really solidifying or crystallizing what this is all about. And again, I'll be guiding you through this process as you look at this. Then what happens then in week 9 and 10, you're going to tell your stories. You're going to show what these things are. You're going to get feedback then on this. But importantly, during weeks 7, 8, 9, and 10, I want you to put this into the field, meaning I want your colleagues to look at, and when I'm talking about colleagues, in your workspaces, or parents, or other kids. I want them to give you feedback on what they think about this. Because what that's going to help you to understand as a leader on how to do this, how to get that type of information in order to generate the possibilities of implementing what you're talking about. And you're going to see a lot of examples of how people are exploring different ideas and how they can put them into action. And I'm going to tell you something. We have obviously a new Secretary of Education that is pushing this idea of choice and is pushing all of these concepts that parents have to have a say, et cetera. Well, you guys, your team might come up with a very interesting model that either you might want to explore in truly developing, or we put it out there for people around the world to look at, and they might pick it up and make it work. So that's the intent that I'm trying to get you guys to experience and to begin to look at. So that framework that I just took you through is in the handbook for you to look at, okay? And again, look at it, you begin to think through it. I'm going to guide you through, obviously, every week with my voice announcements, even though I have these in 2-week sections in there. I'll help you through this process, give you a lot of examples, but I want this to be sort of divergent for you, and I'm going to push you outside of your comfort zone because you need to feel what that's like as you build out, a new concept in learning how to let go of your own preconceived ideas of what schooling is to see what might emerge out of your team. Okay? Any general questions on what I just gave you? You're all so mesmerized, you don't even know what to say. So here's what you're going to do now is again, what you're doing, this is, your challenge is going to be under this rubric, basically, meaning this type of, idea. How do we design a school? Now, the symbols that I have there is, okay, what is the system? What is the physical space, which is represented by that chair? And then that little thing there that's black is, okay, what's the information? What's that information flow? So I want you to think about it, from that point of view. So your starting process is you're going to look at stuff, and I'm going to take you to the website in a minute. So you're going to look at Wall Street Journal stuff, Jeffrey Sachs material, what you learned in 800, 845. Particularly go back to Russell Acuff's book, because I think that will give you some pretty interesting ideas. All the video sources I'm going to give you to create a view of the world. What's there right now? What's happening in terms of the future? What's going on in science? Why are we pushing the idea of maker spaces in schools? What's that all about? What's STEAM all about? What are these things there? How do they play into the possibilities of what the future entails for the next generation and a generation after that? And how do we as educators create the environment for that to take place? So that's your starting point. And what will happen then is another way, and you have copies of the slide, is that so your first, through weeks 1 through 5, you're going to do a lot of discovery, you're going to do a lot of interpretation of ideas, and you're going to do a lot of ideation. you're going to play around. You're going to constantly push each other to come up with the craziest ideas that you can, but you're not going to say, that's a dumb idea, that's a stupid idea. You're going to get those ideas out there and then see what emerges out of the possibilities of all those ideas. And then your last 5 weeks will experimentation around these ideas, and then the evolution of the idea by creating a final product. So that's what we're all about as it relates to this course. Now, what I want to do is, let me stop the share screen for a second, and I want to come back to the website. So I guess I could have stayed right there. Hang on one second. So let's go here. Let me go in here. I want to just make sure that you have a sense of what's going on here. So let me go into our course. It might be nice if I put my glasses on so I can read what I have here. So here's our class here. All right, so up here, the announcements, obviously you know, but course information, just so you know that, there's the design handbooks there, there's your design teams, etc. So that's where the stuff is for you, right there. Now, what I have here is, if you look at this resources and journal articles. So here's a ton of stuff here for you. So here's all of the IDEO material. These are the design toolkit, designers workbook examples. Your teams can look at that. This is where IDEO works off of the idea of building social construction of innovative ideas around the world. So this will help you greatly in relationship to resources. The other thing I have, current research. I do want you to explore this, because what this is all about here is proactive personalities, employment, creativity, promote innovative behavior at work. I've given you all types of journal articles to look at. This will help you as you're thinking about developing a chapter 2. Can video games enhance creativity? Can, I have that twice for some reason, you know, changes in children's pretend play over two decades. How does the concept of play interact with your learning environment, with particularly if young kids? Cognitive neurosciences of creativity. Here is extremely important research. I want you to start looking at what we're beginning to learn from the cognitive sciences as it relates to this whole concept of creativity. So I have a lot of things there for you, okay? So your team need to explore this section of the area. So this is resource and journal articles. Now, the SACS readings. Here's what the SACS readings are all about. And this came from a course that I took on sustainability around the world. So again, these are articles, or actually chapters out of a book that you need to think about, because our kids live on a planet that interacts with people from around the world, regardless of what our political climate is today. So there's things about planetary boundaries. How does that interplay? Sustainable development, education, skills, inclusive and sustainable development beyond 2015, ecosystems and human well-being. So this Jeffrey Sachs material, you need to at least peruse in your teams to get a sense of what Sachs is saying. And he is a leading thinker as it relates to these ideas. And then finally, I have the Wall Street Journal. So if you click on that, what you're going to see is the future of food, the future of entrepreneurship. These are from, I think, a year ago, from the Wall Street Journal. Every year, they get all these experts in all different fields with short articles about what's going on in the world. Future of robotics, future of medicine, future of leisure, future of cities, economic challenges of the future. So this is what I want your team to scan. I want you to explore this stuff that's there in order to help you to begin to think about, okay, here's the world as it's emerging, as you are beginning to think about co-sensing and co-creating, to let go, to look at new possibilities. So I've given you all this information. And so for 3 weeks, you need to explore this particular information. So this week, just to go through this, you know what this is all about. I do have the Design Studio Handbook in there also. So here's something defining your challenge. So this will help you to do that. It's a framework for you that comes out of the IDEO book. Obviously, here's where we are. Creativity in you. Now, I want you to follow in sequence these particular videos. So Young Zhao, you might have seen this one before, but I want you to watch it again from what he's saying about this. Then we get into some very interesting materials. George Kimball, who is the president of IDEO. Then I want you to listen to David Kelly about STEM and humanities. Very interesting interaction. Then I want you to listen to David Kelly on design thinking. And then I want you to this conversation with John Kao, who is a major thinker in innovation and creativity. He used to work at Harvard University. He's considered Mr. Creativity. He's a jazz pianist. He uses jazz as a way of explaining what creativity is all about. And then finally, I just added this today. I'd like you to look at this blog by Brian Alexander about his son, because he writes about his son who's graduating from a school in Vermont, and it might give you an interesting insight to the plight of kids today. So that's available for you. And then finally, we have the Shindig next Tuesday. That's where the architect's coming in. Now, the Shindig, I gave you a little video there to watch what Shindig is. I will have the link posted by Sunday for the use of Shindig. It is a very unique interactive video conferencing tool, much different than Zoom, because it allows you to create self-organized groups during the presentation, and you can talk to each other while presentations are going on. Now, the only thing, and I will tell you this now, you can only, at this time, use Chrome. So you have to download Chrome as your browser in order to enter into Shindig next Tuesday. Now, if you can't make it, it will be recorded. So that I will be able to do. But I'd like as many of you as possible to join this Shindig, because the architect will be there, and he's going to do a pretty good presentation on how architects use educational theory and research around lighting and air and space on how they design buildings. And he'll probably share with you many of the buildings that they have, schools that they have designed around the world, and particularly in DC. And they've developed a couple in Pennsylvania, but this one was going to really help you to get a pretty good sense on what space is all about. So that's sort of the overview. Let me just go back here and say, any questions?
So I have a question. So I'm probably one of the few that I'm not in the educational field in a school, I'm in an organization.
Right.
So what is the thinking for me with my group?
Well, your thinking is, how do you create an environment that links the school and community together?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, because you work for Johnson & Johnson, major health care organization. I'm going to call it healthcare because of products that you create.
Right.
That relate to that. So the question you will deal with in your team is, okay, how does a relationship between a company like that and a school to encourage learning, and how does your learning within your organization interact with the learning cross generations. So maybe Johnson & Johnson puts a school within its campus in New Brunswick and teams up with Rutgers University. So
Which we do. We actually do.
Yeah, well, that's good. But the question is, how's it designed? What do you do? Where is it? How does it deal with these problems? So yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, you'll add that component to your team.
Okay. As opposed to look at how the learning takes place within J&J, tie it to the community.
Yeah, but it might also impact your thinking about learning in J&J.
Yeah, because that's where my focus has been.
Right, no problem.
No problem with that. Okay. All right, thank you.
Even though your team might beat you up because it says, wait a second, we're looking at schools. Now, I want all of you to think about learning as an intergenerational process.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to need in the future.
Okay.
Okay? Other questions? Man, I did a great job. You guys know everything.
I had some questions about the syllabus, the last page and some of the Zoom sessions.
Yep.
Okay, so there's one that says Zoom 9-10 class from 5 to 9 at 6:45 p.m. prototype presentations.
Right.
That's just the date is the 9 to 5.
Let me see, which I'm curious about what I have there. Hang on one second. Let me open up. You're on what page?
The last page.
Okay, hang on a second. I need to, I'm going to move off this page so I can find that. It says 9 to 5.
But yeah, I think that's just the date, right? On May 9th.
Oh, yeah.
Then the next one is it's the 14th. Is that correct?
Right.
All right. So it's a Sunday, Mother's Day.
No, it won't be.
Okay. I'm glad because I have 4 children. I'd like to have Mother's
It will
Day.
be, yeah, well, good. Glad you brought that up. I might have posted the wrong one because I've been trying to put all these things together. So they'll be taken care of. So if the date is screwy, ignore it. Okay?
I think that is all my questions.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. That's basically it. So you know what you have to do, what your teams, so hopefully you've been able to download the team that you're on. What you're going to start doing now is scanning, looking at this stuff, interacting with each other, and begin to look at coming up with a challenge, what our team is going after. And then you're going to send me what that challenge is. Email me your challenge, and I'll give you feedback on it. Okay? And I'll be due, I think we have that due next week or so. So as soon as your team comes up with a challenge, you'll get that information to me. Actually, it might be in the beginning of the 3rd week. So don't worry about it. I'll keep you apprised when I need the challenge. So that's it then. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to stop the recording. And those of you who were not here can listen to this and then obviously get back to me or talk to your colleagues in there.